This week, Tony Kelly from Fortra is with us to discuss data blind spots. Then for this week's topic segment, we discuss solving session hijacking. Finally, in the enterprise security news, tons of funding, query-based block lists, missed AI sales targets, children are stealing and sitting on millions, say goodbye to the billable hour again, AI isn't doing what you think it's doing, AI eats the world, AI-powered dog collars, and for Christmas, I'd love to stop talking about AI in my podcast, please. All that and more in this episode of Enterprise Security Weekly.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
It's the show where we talk security vendors and aren't afraid to name names. It's Enterprise Security Weekly. Cyber threats follow a familiar path, an attack chain reused across the globe. Fortra knows how the enemy operates, so you can stay one step ahead. Our advanced security solutions detect, disrupt, and defeat threats at every stage, protecting your data, business, and customers. With Fortra at your side, the battle ends before it begins. Visit securityweekly.com/Fortra to see how you can get total attack chain coverage. Welcome to Enterprise Security Weekly and happy National Stretching Day. This is episode 437, recorded on Thursday, December 10th, 2025. Very nice, Eamon. Some folks reflexively stretched as I said that. And joining me is the Admiral of ASPM, the Captain of Content, Katie Teitler-Santullo. How you doing, Katie?
I am well. I probably need to stretch. Maybe Eamon can lead us after this podcast.
Eamon is going to lead us in some stretches once we get the intros out of the way.
There we go.
Also joining us, the Dean of Data Science, the Knight of Neurodiversity, the Watcher of Data Center Waste, and more than just watching this week, Jackie McGuire. How you doing, Jackie?
I am so tired.
You are active.
I was at my town council until like 10:30 or 11 o'clock last night. So I'm beat.
Trying to keep those data center builders at bay.
Yes. Yeah. Not in my backyard. Go full Karen.
And finally, joining us is the Baron of Bloodhound, the Pirate King of PowerShell, Sean Metcalf. How you doing, Sean?
Hey, Adrian, doing well, thank you. I just got back from the Gartner Identity Access and Management Summit, so had my travel miles this week.
Nice, yeah. The webcast I just did, the guest on that webcast was also there at that conference, and it's been a long day for me. I spent 4 hours in a hospital waiting room, just waiting on paperwork today. So I didn't mean to say finally. Sorry, Eamon. Also joining us, and now I can say finally joining us, the connoisseur of cloud security, our single origin co-host and resident coffee sommelier. Maybe not coffee sommelier anymore. Eamon Elsewhere. How you doing, Eamon?
Good. I'm doing good. Yeah. Week 5 of no full cup of coffee, although I think week 6 or 7 actually, but
your whole identity on this podcast is coffee drinker. What I'm going to have to change all this intro stuff.
I know there's all this like knowledge, but there's a local roaster has an amazing new coffee that I think I might have to try. So I'm excited about it.
Awesome. Yeah, I tried one that was kind of out there. It was a barrel aged coffee.
Oh,
and it got the boot. Like we tried it, and even just the smell of it in the trash, my partner was like, "Got to get that out of here."
Oh, that's too bad. It sounded like it had a lot of promise.
It did. It sounded really cool. It tasted fine. It wasn't all that exciting. It did taste like coffee that spent time in an old whiskey barrel. But yeah, the smell of the grounds was really bad.
Mm-mm.
Was that the one you ordered through SSH?
No, it is not. I have not broken that one open yet.
Okay.
I've not tried that one. For the audience, what he's referring to, you can SSH to terminal.shop and you can order coffee through a command line interface. It's like a little end curses menu. Yeah.
Yeah. This is where my AI agent would go off the rails, I think.
Yeah.
Congratulations. You have $500 worth of coffee arriving.
Yeah. I did discover this week though that Lactaid makes eggnog. So
Yes, they do. I just saw it in the store and I thought, oh. And
I've been making a lot of eggnog lattes.
Awesome.
I do love. I tend to mix mine with bourbon, but I do love eggnog.
I like mixing.
They have the Sun and
Captain
Comfort
Morgan.
one that I refuse to try because I don't drink. But
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bourbon, or even, and this might get me booted, but a little Crown in your eggnog is also delicious.
I like Captain Morgan
Sure,
because it
why
adds
not?
that little bit of spice, a little bit of kick to it.
A little
Speaking
bit
of kick, like
Oh, all right. We gotta pause on the recipes and get the interview started, though.
Yeah, right.
We'll put those in the show notes later. We'll put some drink recipes in there. This interview is sponsored by Fortra. Not the whiskey part, not the eggnog part, but that was a bonus. Today's topic is illuminating data blind spots. We're excited to have Tony Kelly with us today. He's the sales engineering director at Fortra, and Tony leads go-to-market efforts for Secure Service Edge and has expertise even in DSPM, CSPM, SSPM, and AI-driven automation. Welcome to the show, Tony. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm thinking I may go get a cup of coffee after this.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, so excited to have Fortra on again. Just before we went live, I was mentioning I think one of our best performing videos ever was when the rebranding interview, because I actually challenged John, was his name?
Yes.
Is that right, Tony?
We call him John G. There's a few Johns here.
Yeah, John G. I challenged him to go through every single acquisition and in like one sentence describe what they do, and we did kind of like a lightning round, and he raced through everything. It was a lot of fun.
Wow, that would be challenging. I think there's up to 18 of those. So wow.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, speaking of Fortra, maybe Tony, give us a little bit of background on Fortra, and its company has made some big changes, gone through a lot in the last couple of years, and I think it might help people to understand what you guys pulled together and built here.
Yeah, I'll give you a couple of highlights. So Fortra's as a brand has been around, I think, about 5 years. But really, as a company, we're about 40 years old. Originally focused on the IBM i-Series products and providing ecosystem solutions around that. But the last several years, the executive board wanted to get into cybersecurity. And so they went on a series of acquisitions. And if you look at our overall product set, they align really well to almost every step of the MITRE attack chain. And so ranging from offensive security like Cobalt Strike, all the way to defensive security and data protection, which is an area where I focus. But a lot of technologies. In the beginning with the acquisitions, they allowed each acquired company to kind of keep focusing on what they did. These were typically companies that were leaders in their respective space, like a Tripwire for file integrity monitoring, Digital Guardian for endpoint DLP. But this past year, they decided to really integrate all of the acquired companies into one cybersecurity program. And with that, the innovation is now about integrating all the tech. So really some exciting things, I think, occurring. Love to get more into that.
Yeah, and it's with platforms becoming a big thing, you guys kind of came out of nowhere with that as well, and yeah, and even with the other platforms out there, I'm not sure anybody else is as you described, cover the space as comprehensively as you guys probably do. Like you even have a vulnerability scanner, digital defense, I think was the original name. Yeah. So all that stuff, Cobalt Strike, core security? Like, are we still using those names, or are the products being rebranded as well?
The names still get used quite a bit, especially at a conference. Like last week, I was at AWS reInvent, and as soon as there folks that come by, who is Fortra, as soon as you would mention something like a Tripwire or Cobalt,
Yeah,
they
the
go,
light bulb goes off.
I use those products. They're great.
Yeah.
So we are working steadily on the branding, but you'll still see legacy brands maybe pop up on data sheets or product SKUs, but that will be more kind of transitioning to just Fortress soon. As it relates to data protection, we have about 5 products from 5 acquisitions that are all rapidly coming together as one solution. So with that, you'll see simplification of our product SKUs and then the names tying back to Fortra data protection.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, and data protection's interesting. Back when I was an analyst at 451 Research, I predicted back then that data security would be one of the last things that the industry tackles, just because it is so tricky. You know, data is kind of like water. It gets in everywhere. It ruins everything. It goes places where you don't want it to go, and it shouldn't go. So, you know, if you're a homeowner or a boat owner, or really, you know, water becomes a problem for a lot of things, and data is a lot like that for companies. So, yeah, and then we had the cloud, right? You know, and I don't know if the assumption was that data centers go away, but each time we get a new technology, it doesn't really replace anything. We just get more places for data to go and get stuck, whether it's Salesforce, you know, you can put a ton of data in there. Google Drive, OneDrive, Dropbox, companies might still have Windows file servers, and then everything you put in the cloud. Yeah, you know, where do you even start, right? Where do you even start doing this? All the, you know, the data discovery that you need to do to even figure out what you have.
Yeah, and the reality of the shadow IT is alive and well. So there's so many things that the IT departments know about in terms of on-premise data centers, file shares, databases, but also cloud-based. But then there's everything that the users themselves have stood up, even on-prem file shares, if you will. So there's really, talk about data sprawl, it is everywhere. And I don't know if you all have heard the Forbes analyst reporting, I think a few years back, about 90% of the world's data was created in the last 2 years. That trend keeps repeating itself every year. And so, you know, identifying your data, it is challenging. And I think there's a lot of folks who like to have plausible deniability. Maybe if I just don't look for it, I can't be, you know, held accountable for whenever it's exposed or breached.
I used to work for an SSPM vendor, and that was literally a thing we would hear on sales calls.
Oh, yeah.
So like, I know this.
Meetings.
I know this is.
I didn't see that.
I know this is a problem, but on my list of super critical things to work on, this is number 37, and I only have time for 10 items on that list this year.
And that is the reality. I started my career in IT, and IT has always been overworked, underpaid, understaffed, undertooled. It's a challenge. So they do have to kind of focus on what are the biggest priorities.
So we're talking about DSPM today. So maybe if I could get just kind of like a you know, elevator pitch on what DSPM is designed to do and how it differs from DLP, then I'll open it up for some of my co-hosts to ask questions here as well.
Yeah, you bet. So I'm excited about DSPM. I've been in the data protection space that's closely coupled with Secure Service Edge for the last 10 years. You know, now that we've recognized users, apps, devices, workloads, they're all in the cloud. Now you need to recognize I can't necessarily secure the perimeter anymore. So what do I need to focus on? It is the data. The data is the most critical asset of any company. So how do you find that? Well, traditionally with DLP, we manually define policies on what data do I want to find and thus protect. So that's depending on, what data. If I'm a retailer, PCI. If I'm healthcare, it's HIPAA data. But the reality is we have lots of data that could be critical. Mergers and acquisitions data, as an example. So how do we more dynamically, automatically discover the data I know I should look for, but also all the other data that's probably equally as critical? That's the promise of DSPM. Now, instead of writing policies to look for data, DSPM can automate the discovery using AI and lots of other data identifiers to surface all of your data and all the analytics about it. File types, public shares, external shares, you name it, databases, data shares, file shares. That's the idea of DSPM. And a lot of that has begun in the cloud, but guess what? We need it everywhere, even on-prem. So DSPM, it's a very exciting market to be getting into.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is one of the most challenging places to get into, I think, because of everything that you mentioned there, all the places that data gets to. And so is SSPM part of that, right? So SSPM, some of those solutions, I mentioned I used to work in the space, are concerned with some of them there seems like maybe there's some overlap here, I guess is where I'm getting to. Like it's concerned with configuration, but the SSPM vendor I worked for also looked at like data sharing, for example. Like what are how many shared Google Drive files do you have where those shares haven't been used in a year or more? Can we just shut down sharing to anybody with a link, for example?
Are you suggesting that perhaps we have acronym sprawl?
I'm struggling here.
Well, go ahead.
I was going to say, how do analysts get a gold star at the end of the year on their performance reviews if they don't create a new acronym? Isn't that how we're measured?
No. Maybe
only at Gartner, though. I tried creating acronyms at 451, and it was pointless because my acronym would just get steamrolled by Gartner anyway, and I'd end up having to use theirs.
Well, maybe the next one can be XSPM. So we started with CSPM, cloud, looking for misconfigurations with AWS, Azure, et cetera. But then SSPM, SaaS, security posture management, permissions and privileges for users, admins, third-party connected apps. And now DSPM, data security posture management. And I would say they all come together now because you do want to mix and match all of the views that you collect from each three of those, because data can be exposed in a number of ways. And backdoors, maybe a misconfigured host for RDP, maybe a connected app that has too many permissions, not just I've got data in a OneDrive folder that's publicly shared. So really, we do use all three of those to provide our overall risk assessment for our customers.
Right. Because just discovering the data and understanding what the data is, then you need all that context from all those other tools to understand whether it's at risk or not.
Exactly. So we do leverage all three viewpoints in our risk assessments. But with DSPM now being able to automate that process without writing dozens of DLP policies for scanning is outstanding. But the other thing is it's continuous. You want that continuous monitoring because data is constantly being generated, edited, shared. The data is dynamic. So you need that continuous posture management, just like the CSPM and FSPM.
Yeah. Any other questions from anyone else before I move on?
I mean,
I
I
guess I was
have a
going to
couple
ask how we
questions.
prevent this sprawl.
Right.
How do we prevent the data sprawl? How do we keep people from? Because I think one of the interesting things about data is that, and especially on endpoints, you're talking about, user created data sprawl, taking screenshots of things. I think AI now presents an opportunity to do data discovery at a level we haven't been able to do it before, but then that also creates a volume issue. So what do you see as being kind of the top priority for trying to prevent some of this data sprawl?
So that's where you want to couple a DSPM with a DLP. So in terms of your data protection journey, it begins with discovery. And then we like to classify that data. Is it critical or not, and why? But then we want to put protections in place. And we want to do it all in a way where we're enabling the business. We're not hindering the business, right? And it's not always about being compliant. In the HIPAA area, I had a customer come by our booth at AWS, and they talked about each infraction of HIPAA is $1 million fine. And that's massive. That's massive. And it's actually held them back in many ways from fully embracing the value of the cloud. So at Fortra, really, we're trying to help make data protection simpler, more scalable, but business friendly. So we have, when it comes to preventing data sprawl, we work to make sure we're not stomping on user productivity, but maybe guiding them back that sensitive data. You can't send it to just any cloud destination, but you can send it to your corporate OneDrive. So we're working to kind of guide the users versus shut them down. So we have lots of ways where we do enforcement, but just gently trying to redirect them back to safe areas of using the data, working with the data, sharing the data.
Yeah. So maybe we don't prevent the sprawl as long as we can secure the sprawl, right?
And guide the sprawl. Guide the sprawl.
Yeah. And guide the sprawl.
and I'll give you some,
That's a good tagline.
Yeah. And I'll give you some examples. I mentioned, guiding back to OneDrive. So if you want cloud storage, that's fantastic. We're going to guide you with certain types of data back to your corporate OneDrive. But I've got so many customers that have tech software developers, and they use GitHub or GitLab. Mm-hmm. Well, let's guide them to their corporate instance of GitHub or GitLab. These days,
using like a CASB or something like that. When you say guide them,
then that would be the legacy DLP protection, if you will, is coming from that CASB type capability. But another example that's coming up is a corporate instance of ChatGPT. So rather than saying you can't use GenAI or ChatGPT, let's guide you with that type certain data, source code, company financials, whatever, to your corporate instance of ChatGPT. So we've got lots of ways to do data protection, but at the end of the day, we want to help the companies be highly successful and their users to be productive, just being safe with how they're using their data.
Gotcha.
I've seen an issue with data duplication where there isn't exactly an authoritative source of where things should be, so people create it and put it somewhere else. This guiding factor, is that part of what you're talking about with that? Making sure that everyone knows where the authoritative source is, because as the data is being created or attempted to be created, it can be guided back to that authoritative source.
And I think that's a great point. So data lineage comes to mind. And I would say historically in the world of data protection, it all began with kind of yes or no. Can you have access to that data or not? And then over time, the range of protections grew to be more user friendly. You can have access to that data, but we're going to mask the credit card numbers. But to your point of the history or the single source of truth, where's the original file, the original content? that takes me to data lineage. And I would say that's an area where our data protection capabilities will evolve so that we can say, here's the original version of that file. And maybe also here are all the other copies of that file and maybe what's changed with that. So over time, as we provide more and more data lineage, those will be the types of things we can shine a light on. And this is where AI will help us. How do we rapidly detect all the different variations and correlate it back? And so that's what I'm excited about with DSPM and AI in general. It's going to allow us to do a lot of things that really were still manual in the past. So there's a lot more to come for sure. And for us, because we can do data discovery on your endpoint, like my laptop here, on your network file shares and databases of public file shares and databases in AWS, as well as all your cloud applications, we're going to have a lot of analytics to say that very point. The original file was in your corporate OneDrive, but here's 10 more copies of that in many, many, many different locations.
Yeah, and to that point, you know, I remember when DSPM first came out, we actually interviewed some of the founders who brought them on, but these were vendors that started with DSPM from scratch. And I remember a lot of them only covered the cloud. Like they would give you an image and you would deploy it in your EC2 or something, or the Azure, Google Cloud equivalent, but didn't really do on-prem, or maybe you could install it on-prem, but certainly didn't do endpoint. How are you guys able to cover so much ground there? I presume it has something to do with all the acquisitions, but
yes,
help us understand exactly like how you're able to cover so much and what exactly you're covering there.
And the reason we can is because of those 5 acquisitions in the world of data protection. So the average enterprise probably have 3 or 4 or 5 different data protection tools, not to mention maybe different discovery tools. So we are in many ways the same, 5 acquisitions, but now they're all coming together into one single cloud management, cloud policy orchestration platform. So we've got the tech today. They're individual in nature in terms of endpoint DLP from our Digital Guardian acquisition, but they're all rapidly coming together. So you have one place to manage in terms of data discovery. Was that data store an on-prem file share, a database in AWS? Was it a SaaS data store like OneDrive, or maybe a platform data store like Salesforce? So one place to see all the data and all the analytics with that, but then also one place to create policy for it to be enforced, whether that's enforcement at the endpoint, for example, printing a blueprint from my laptop to a local printer. Maybe I don't want to allow that because I don't want just anybody in the office to walk by and see that blueprint. So endpoint controls, cloud proxy controls, cloud collaboration controls, email data protection controls, all managed from the same policy engine. That's where we're rapidly heading in the next 2 quarters.
So walk me through, like, when you're, as a CISO, you're trying to have only a limited number of agents running in your ecosystem, right? So, if I had to pick, I would probably pick DLP because I don't want the data leaving my walls. So walk me through like the thought process as to DSPM, DLP, maybe SASE. Like it's kind of converging. So how does one make that decision?
Yeah, and it's always about the use case, Eamon. When it comes to when would I most want to use endpoint, it's that example. I'm concerned about sensitive data going to a print job. I'm concerned about sensitive data being saved to a USB drive. So those are absolutes. I've got to have endpoint DLP. but between endpoint and a SASE-based cloud proxy, there is a lot of overlap. I want to prevent data exfiltration to the cloud. I can use the endpoint, or I could use a cloud proxy. And there's going to be times where you may prefer the cloud proxy back to instance awareness. Is this my corporate OneDrive, or is this my personal OneDrive, or is this some third party's OneDrive? Same with ChatGPT and the like. So that's where that cloud proxy gets up into that JSON layer and can understand the different instances. So that kind of lends to, I need a cloud DLP. So the use case will drive where to begin. What we are coming out with very soon is a lightweight agent that does some of the endpoint DLP controls where those are required, but then the rest maybe steers to the cloud proxy. So we're going to very soon have a kind of a lighter weight endpoint DLP that couples in that cloud proxy of the SASE, if you will.
Makes sense.
All right. And that is all we have time for today. Tony, thank you for joining us on Enterprise Security Weekly today.
You bet. Hey, it was my pleasure. Enjoyed meeting all of you all, and great insights I got from each of you, especially Jackie. I had a bit of the interview. It's fun.
Yeah.
All right. Make sure you visit.
I've been mired in research the last couple days, so I'm glad someone finds it useful.
Well, I'm very fascinated about AI, these massive data centers, power plants. It is this AI arms race, and it's like, how do we support it? How do we help it? I don't know. Get the most out of the country for it, whatever. But I think exciting times ahead.
It presents a great opportunity in data volume, right? So I guess for you guys, we're creating lots more data that you're going to have to protect. So I think it's definitely fits into the conversation.
Yeah, with DSPM, we'll use AI to help us with this AI evolution.
All right. Make sure you visit securityweekly.com/Fortra and stay tuned. When we come back, we're going to discuss session hijacking for this week's topic segment. Ransomware, supply chain attacks, 0 days. Cyber threats don't wait, and neither should your defenses. With ThreatLocker, you're not just reacting to threats, you're stopping them before they start. Our Zero Trust endpoint protection locks down your environment with pinpoint control over what's allowed to run and what's not. No guesswork, no blind spots. Just proactive, built-for-now security that keeps your business moving. Want to see how a true default deny strategy works? Head over to securityweekly.com/ThreatLocker and take the first step towards shutting the door on threats before they even knock. Imprivata delivers simple and secure access management solutions for healthcare and other mission-critical industries to ensure every second of crucial work is both frictionless and secure. Imprivata Enterprise Access Management delivers simple and secure access to any app from any device with single sign-on, multi-factor, and passwordless authentication. The solution streamlines workflows, reduces password fatigue, and ensures seamless access for every identity. Learn more about how Imprivata is redefining secure access at securityweekly.com/Imprivata. Identity and access management is hard. Whether it's administering identities, managing and controlling access, building, implementing, and enforcing policies, or governing the whole thing, IAM is often the realm of inefficient processes, bloated implementation timelines, and expensive and complex projects that struggle to solve problems. Thanks to Junto, those challenges can be a thing of the past. Junto delivers a full-stack IAM platform with a microservices architecture that delivers all of the functionality your unique environment demands, and an implementation model built for rapid and relevant time to value without requiring specialized staff and skills. Learn more at securityweekly.com/Junto. Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. For this week's topic segment, we're talking about session hijacking. So throughout the year, and not just on this podcast, but if you've read any industry reports, we've seen a lot about infostealers. We've had a lot of guests on here where we talk about infostealers. Attackers are really loving logging into companies and not having to hack in, not having to exploit vulnerabilities. So anytime you can steal somebody's credentials, you can get on their laptop and steal all their session tokens, all their OAuth keys, all their SSH keys, AWS API keys. There's just, especially if you get on an engineer's laptop, you can have just a field day with credentials that you can peel off of there. And that's what infostealers do. And then they sell them on the black market. They have black markets just for selling access to these different things. That's how EA, I think, got hacked a couple years ago. They got into their Slack instance and then social engineered a full access to their VPN from there. From the Slack instance. And we just see it over and over again. So something I've been asking guests every time we have an identity guest on is why can't I just steal your cookies and be logged in as you? Like, passkeys are great and all. But then after that session is established, like if it's Slack or Teams or Notion or like there's so many of these apps that don't require you to log in every day, which means there's some token keeping you logged in on your system. And those are the things that people are stealing. And it just seems crazy that in 2025, you can just move a file from, one laptop to another and bypass MFA and authentication and everything. So I decided to dig into it a bit after watching a webinar the other day that had somebody from the FIDO Alliance on it. And it was about passkeys and how amazing passkeys are and everything and the state of adoption of passkeys. And I was like, yeah, but what about, this other side of the problem, right? And he pointed me to this white paper, which we have linked in the show notes here at the FIDO Alliance. So, kudos to, I forget his name, but he pointed me directly this white paper called DBSC/DPOP as complementary technologies to FIDO authentication. And those acronyms are device-bound session credentials for browsers, that's DBSC, and DPOP is demonstrating proof of possession, and that's for OAuth applications. I'm going to stop talking there a moment and maybe let Eamon take over because I believe you were playing with one of these the other day.
Yeah. Actually, I was playing with in Google Workspace, and this we're in a high risk environment, so I'm trying to turn on all the bells and whistles that are available. And I saw this checkbox, this exact checkbox. It's only available for Windows machines. I guess working with a TPM. I'm trying to figure out why it's not compatible with Mac. Maybe it's just they're not caught up with this standard yet. But yeah, device-bound session credentials. So it did say people may have to re-authenticate more often. But it's available in Google Workspace as a beta. So I like that.
Yeah, there are definitely 2 points to the bearer token and how it could be protected. One is browser based, and the other is for that application itself, Adrian, like you were talking about with Slack or Teams. So it does come down to how the implementation is being done, and really what it does is cut down the window. So the window is reduced from hours or days to minutes, is based on how the spec is written. So there still is a slight amount of time that's available there. And for the browser-based protection, they do say that you have to trust the browser. So if there's an injection into the browser, then there's still a problem. And for the application side itself, for that OAuth token, they do say that if there's client-side malware, that could interfere or interact with it in interesting ways as well. But the overall, the whole purpose is that there's a public private key that's generated in the browser, and the private key is stored in a TPM on that device. So that way, the public key is used to sign something. The private key is used to sign something, and the public key is used by the server in order to be able to validate that. So using the asymmetric keys in order to validate is a huge step forward.
Yeah, and to Eamon's question about macOS, if the results in my ChatGPT request are to be believed, the reason it doesn't work with Chrome on macOS is because a secure enclave doesn't work the same way a TPM does, because it still allows stuff stored in the secure enclave to be synced via iCloud keychain, so that it can migrate between devices. And so therefore it's not device bound, it's Apple account bound, which violates the standard. So there's apparently not a way to tie it to just a single device. So if you think about this from an employer standpoint, if you give somebody a MacBook and let them log in with their personal Apple account, there goes all your stuff to their personal iPad and iPhone as well, right?
Yeah, apparently Macs don't have a TPM, so their version.
But the secure enclave is technically a TPM, I think.
Seems like, yeah. I'm trying to I'm asking ChatGPT here about, like, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, everybody I've ever talked to says that's just Apple's, brand name for their TPM, but functionally, it works the same way as a TPM. I mean, you can do whatever you want with a TPM, though, right? Like the way Windows treats a TPM, that's the only place it's stored. But Apple's not only storing it in the TPM, they're also syncing with iCloud keychain. I don't think that's a feature of the Secure Enclave. That's just how they enable that kind of, like you join a Wi-Fi access point from your iPhone and it's automatically available and already connected on your iPad. So that I think they have a name for that, like Continuum or something like that.
Yeah. And I got to dig deep into that. And then also says that Apple hasn't exposed a browser grade API yet. So
okay.
So Apple needs to catch up.
Yeah.
Come on, Apple. Let's go.
So Sean,
also, I think with TPM, you can also, it's available. You can make it off chip versus secure enclave, which is kind of always on. So there's not the option to prevent it from syncing. So yeah, do better, Apple.
Which also is only valid if you understand that, right? So every laptop would have to come from a central IT department and be configured that way before it's shipped. And that's just not how companies are managing their assets these days, especially if somebody's working remotely. It's go buy your machine and, we'll configure it remotely. But most of the time that means there are fewer security precautions anyhow.
It depends. The folks I know do ship them either pre-configured or like Apple has some kind of program where you can do that, I believe, where you can even have like the applications you need pre-installed before it ships. So you would still do it from like the Apple website, but somebody would have to set all that up. And then you can do the same thing with like Dell, for example. You can upload your image and then they ship a laptop to your employee directly from Dell with your image, your configuration and all that.
Yeah, Microsoft has something called Autopilot that does that, which is really cool. It just that purchase with that company gets tied to that device ID, and when it's delivered to the person and they boot it up and they log in, it goes ahead and configures.
Sure, but again, and I'm sure there are companies that do that. My last 3 companies did not.
Right.
Probably depends on what type of role you're in too, like the sensitivity of the resources you have access to and what level you need to be kind of constrained at. So if you're hiring a salesperson or marketing, maybe they don't necessarily need that level of lockdown at the endpoint. But if you've got somebody who's going to be touching source code or having access to broader,
I was looking at source code and product plans on the daily. And I'm in marketing. Yeah,
I mean, if I put on my CISO hat, I wouldn't want multiple workflows for how devices are. Eamon, you correct me if I'm wrong, but wouldn't you rather just have one secure way of doing things rather than, for different departments, you'd ship devices differently?
Oh, I'd love that, but that's depending on the
reality.
Yeah. I gotta adapt.
Yeah. Well, and like even even some of the most secure large enterprises I've worked with, like they don't do that for vendors, for example, or contractors. And I've had very direct conversations about this, about like, what is the point of having a device management program and shipping secure devices if then you're going to bring vendors in and give them access to your environment from non-secured endpoints? It basically negates the whole thing. But I guess the theory is just you can only control what you can control, right?
Oh yeah, well, I
Which-
would only give them limited access.
Yeah. Speaking of which, you can control only what you can control. The whole idea behind device-based or the device configured system in order to allow the bearer token to be used but protected is something that is it will try to do it, and if it can't, it falls back to the normal. So I think that's one of the nice things about the spec as it's written.
So you know what this means, that Macs don't work with DBSC. This means Apple's going to create its own standard.
You know, that's not cool. Like, so,
And it's and you're going to have to use Safari, and it's only going to work with Safari.
I mean, I'm already annoyed reading this on why it doesn't work with Mac. I mean, almost 80-90% of engineers are on Macs, right? And so you're trying to protect your source code or their GitHub session from being hijacked. I mean,
and they're the ones being targeted with these infostealers too.
Yeah. So
you know, there are very few things that could make me switch to a Windows PC. But if you make me use Safari, I'm getting a Windows PC. I am not using Safari. It is such garbage.
I don't know. Maybe this is something an enterprise browser can solve on its own without the operating system requirements. It would be interesting to see if they can solve it in the user layer.
And there's your use case for them coming back, Adrian. That's been your tiny little thread for the past 2 years.
That would be very interesting, given that the spec says that the operating system uses an API to make it unreachable by an attacker interacting with the system.
The only thing I can think of is if the operating system issues. So if you had machine cert plus user cert, and you use the user cert as a way to kind of link it to DBSC, but I'm not. I have to talk to someone smarter than me to figure that out.
Yeah. So, the other thing I promised here in the show notes is, what's the current adoption of this? And it seems like Depop, which is the one we haven't talked about as much, which is for OAuth applications. It looks like there are a lot of providers out there that support that, whereas the DBSC, the piece for web browsers, the TPM stored component, that has not even been finalized yet by the W3C.
Yeah, I hosted Okta's conference, Octane, a couple months ago, and Auth0 has Depop. I think it's like an OAuth 2.0 thing. But I know that there are a handful of the different identity companies who are starting to support these.
Yeah, it looks like Okta, Auth0, Keycloak, Duende Identity Server. There's a few others in there. API Gateways, Kong, that are mentioned here. So, Depop seems to be available almost everywhere. But then, of course, that's something that if you want Slack or Notion to support that, they got to build that into the application. That's not something the CISO can do or the end user can do. You need them to enable, similar to Passkeys and MFA and stuff like that. We need the application builders to enable this. All right. So I learned a lot in this topic segment. I didn't have as much time as I wanted to prepare for this, but we learned. I learned you guys actually all knew a little bit about it. So I think collectively we actually had a good amount of information about it. And it's again the link to that FIDO Alliance white paper is in the show notes here. And maybe that's the next thing we need to start pushing our application builders to do is to keep these authentication tokens from being stealable from our systems, because that's what attackers are doing.
I was researching too. If you want to learn more, OAuth actually has a pretty decent set of trainings that includes both of these things.
Okay. Yeah. If you send it to me, I can get it in the show notes as well. I'll get it added. All right, cool. With that, that's this week's topic segment. And I would love to hear if any of our audience knows more about this, or, if we misstated something, feel free to comment or to send us a note and on any of the platforms that we publish this podcast on. And with that, we're going to end the topic segment, and we'll be right back in a few moments with the weekly enterprise news. AI has officially moved past the hype. The question isn't should we use AI anymore, it's how do we use it in a way that truly helps. Meet Delinea Iris AI, practical AI to secure the modern enterprise, designed to work quietly in the background, making faster, smarter access decisions, reducing risk, and giving your team time back. This isn't AI for show. It's purpose-built for identity security, boosting productivity without adding friction. Learn more at securityweekly.com/Delinea. Ever feel like your network infrastructure is stuck in the past? Meet Meter, the company reimagining what it means to get and stay online. Meter delivers full-stack networking, wired, wireless, and cellular, all in one seamless, scalable, and secure solution. From hardware design and firmware to software deployment and support, Meter streamlines every part of your network while giving you all the control and transparency you need. Whether you're managing a branch office, retail stores, or a massive data center, Meter gives you performance, reliability, and the visibility you need to stay in control. Thanks to Meter for sponsoring. Go to securityweekly.com/Meter to book a demo now. That's securityweekly.com/Meter. METER. Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. Now for the Enterprise Security Weekly news. You can check out securityweekly.com/ESW 437-437 if you want to follow along as we go through the news, or for links to the articles we're covering, or for any snarky comments that I maybe threw in there. So yeah, kicking off here, funding is kind of crazy, and we're wondering if this is maybe tied to the AI bubble, right? Because almost everything, I think in that video that I have in the show notes here, I think one of the things he points out is almost 100% of startups going through the one particular VC that's an accelerator also. I'm blanking on the name.
YC? No. YC.
Yeah.
YC?
Maybe it's YC. Like almost 100% are AI companies, right? So on the security side, obviously there's a ton of AI security companies. And I think you can see that in today's show notes as well. We've got Impair.ai, Lumia Security, Helmet Security, 7AI. So at least half of them, if not a little bit more than half, are all AI companies. So Mike Prevett notes that this is the third straight quarter with over $5 billion in cybersecurity funding raised. And obviously, like one of those here is a $1.8 billion post-IPO debt raise from Checkpoint Software. So that kind of throws things off a little bit when you have these giant post-IPO debt rounds. Fastly also has one, but it's only $160 million.
Yeah, how does that work?
It's Jackie. How does that work?
Apologies, I was reading something else for the next story. How does what work?
Post-IPO debt rounds.
Oh, yeah.
What's the deal with that?
So
those aren't just new shares. That's not just offering new shares, right? Or is it?
It depends on how it's structured. So you can do securitized debt, but no, typically it'd be you're taking on debt you're actually issuing fixed income to take on debt.
Okay. And so it's not like a loan you're getting from a bank or something like that.
Well, it depends on how it's
Is it?
structured, because there are a handful of publicly traded companies who have figured out how to take on debt, but do it through an LLC that they own with another shell company so that it shows up as an equity investment and an asset on their balance sheet. And the shell company is actually the one who's taking on the debt. So all depends on how you're structuring it.
Can I do that
Creative
personally?
finance.
Sounds like private equity.
Yeah, essentially, yeah, and it's securitized debt. So it's there's actually, that's part of the whole argument I'm having with data centers and how they're being funded and whether we're in a bubble, is that because a lot of the hyperscalers are using that as a model where they make an equity investment in a shell company, the shell company is issuing basically what equates to debt, collateralized debt obligations, and then it doesn't show up on the balance sheet. So nobody actually knows how much debt any of these hyperscalers have taken on to build data centers because of the shell game they're playing with LLCs.
That doesn't sound like a bubble at all.
Yeah, it's literally the exact funding structure of Enron and Lucent, and they both did really well. So I don't know what could go wrong.
It's different though. This is super intelligence, Jackie. It's different.
Yeah, this
Oh,
time
I'm
this
sorry.
time
I'm
it's
gonna
change
different.
the
It's-
world.
it's
My
not gonna-
authentic intelligence can't keep up with the artificial kind.
I mean, technically, it has kind of changed the world. like it's definitely going to change the world.
That's true.
Maybe
You said a
maybe
phrase
not in
I
the
don't
way
understand.
promised.
Authentic intelligence.
All right. So there's a couple acquisitions here. Vesa was acquired by ServiceNow. They did not disclose how much. Probably will at some point. And Tromzo, US-based AppSec startup, was acquired by Checkmarks, also for an undisclosed amount. Though Vesa raised $233 million in funding, Tromzo raised 11.1, so probably different deal sizes,
Yeah.
slightly different.
And it just is another kind of demonstration here with why people don't IPO anymore. Because if you IPO, you have to disclose all kinds of things about being acquired. And if you just take a bunch of private equity, then you can do whatever you want, sell for whatever you want.
And they're raising more money privately without IPO. And they don't have to deal with, like, as a security company, I've always said that, you might have to pivot hard. And, consumer, like investors, public investors don't have the stomach for that kind of risk. So, that's, you don't have those handcuffs on either.
Yeah.
Well,
there's
there's-
also a level of systemic risk where when you have just a handful of companies that make up, 65, 70% of the valuation of, say, the S&P.
7 companies. Mhm.
Yeah. There's no reason to get yourself listed on one of those exchanges or indexes. And then if one of those companies takes a poop.
Through no
you go
fault of
with
your
them.
own.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, I mean, right now, if you know that the market is at an all-time high, I don't know why you'd get a great valuation at IPO, but then the amount of systemic risk that you're taking on is just not worth it, I don't think.
Yeah, agreed. So number 2 here is pretty interesting. I saw Gray Noise post this, and it's so interesting because it's the whole thing that Gray Noise has gone after. Like when David Bianco came out with a Pyramid of Pain, I think that stuck in everybody's heads. Like, right, of course, an IP address can change from one day to the next. So that's like your least valuable threat intelligence, right? On up to, I think TTPs are at the very top. The different tactics that attackers use, how they actually do the hacking. But the thing that Gray Noise has done that's beautiful here is they've made handling that very low end, that very basic bottom of the pyramid stuff, kind of automated. And one of the things they have now is like back in my day, FBI would send us an email. In that email would be a list of IP addresses that we should block. And I would forward that email to the firewall admins and the WAF admins, and they would copy and paste it out of that email, and they would put it in the block list on those respective systems. And here, this is not only automated, but based on a dynamic query, right? So now you can have block lists based on a dynamic query, and that's like, with the, it should be low effort. It should be fully automated, for the lowest cost threat intel, I think.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. I think we're going to get to my story a little bit later, but to see how this starts to go awry. So with things like threat actors who might be using your IP to do nefarious things and you don't know it, and then all of a sudden you end up on somebody's crap list without meaning to.
That's the thing when you fully automate something, you gotta monitor it. Yeah. you gotta make sure it's not going off the rails. Sean, you look like you were going to say something there.
I love gray noise and everything that they do. It's a great opportunity to be able to filter stuff out of the SIM and figure out what's not valid. What are the things that are actually attackers versus, and as well as the background internet noise.
Yeah, benign versus malicious, I think is how they tag it. The next one I have not had a chance to play with, Gadi Evron. It's in his GitHub account, but there's a long list of folks that are apparently worked on this. A bunch of folks that you might recognize. Daniel Cuthbert, Thomas Dullian, who's known on the internets as Halvar Flake, Michael Bargery. So Autonomous Offensive Defensive Security Research Framework. They really wanted the acronym to say Raptor. It's based on Claude Code, but I haven't fully grokked what this is exactly. But it looks like it's primarily for AppSec, for like you point it at a repository and it's going to fuzz, it's going to look for vulnerabilities and fix them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so analyzes exploits by generating proof of concepts, patches with code to fix vulnerabilities. Yeah, so I mean, we're seeing more and more of this, right? Like I think a while back we talked about Buttercup, which was now I'm going to forget the name of the company, but it was like came in second place in the DARPA initiative to without a human in the loop find vulnerabilities and fix them autonomously.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this seems really. I've been looking at this. It looks nice. It looks fun. I'm curious to try it out. Do some actual fuzzing. What I like is it has a create skill, because in Claude Code you have skills, which is like the big thing, and that can kind of help make it a little better. So I'm not sure what the efficacy is versus having Claude reviewing your code, which we're kind of doing now using Opus. So, but yeah, this is cool. Kind of have it just run.
Yeah, one of the really cool things is it helps address the MPEG downscaling that we were talking about a couple weeks ago that Google disclosed, where you could actually insert malicious code and based on the way that Google downscales MPEG. So it has MPEG specific patching to help address that, because I don't think many people had figured out how to even start to think about that. And so it's a great tool for teams that we all wish we had time to do this kind of adversarial, the offense defense. And the reality is that unless you're a very large team that has a team who has time for it, it's probably not going to happen. So this is a nice augment.
Yeah. And it looks like it has some enterprise functionality as well. So you can integrate it into a CI/CD pipeline. Yeah, pretty interesting. Interesting open source tool to play around with. Next story here, we've got a series of trends here. Only 3 of them are AI related. The first one, Microsoft drops their AI sales targets in half. So they cut them in half after salespeople missed their quotas. I don't know how aggressive the quotas were, but Microsoft, the CEO there is already on, has been quoted in saying that AI is not going to make a big dent in their in their revenue. Is not going to 10x
just
their
the
revenue.
Wrong way. It was just the opposite way.
Right, because the spending is insane. And it's not matching. But that's the same for the whole AI industry. Like the spending is like 100x anything that's coming in. And that's where things get, that's where we start clenching, is like who's going to pay for all that? How's all that going to get paid for?
Yeah, I think this is very similar to what happened when Microsoft was pushing sales folks to sell cloud to government, U.S. government, and those numbers that they came up with were initially just way too high. Government wasn't moving on GovCloud until much later. So it may just be a similar thing where they were far more optimistic than they should have been, and were pushing for salespeople to focus on this thing that it just depends on what the organizations are going to move forward with and how they're going to move forward. And right now, I think they're testing the waters and figuring things out and trying things, but not really necessarily going to be willing to foot the cost of today's AI subscriptions.
But I think the shift to cloud was really like what Microsoft specifically was encouraging people to do was really damaging for cloud too, because they wanted to hit those sales numbers. So they're like, just vSphere straight into EC2, which is like the worst possible thing you could do. And people got sticker shock immediately after that because, you have 2,000 extra large EC2 instances, right? So, a bunch of people bounced right back out of the cloud after that, with Microsoft pushing people just lift and shift.
I'd be really interested to understand the demographics at play here, because I think this is another case of tech companies getting really excited about a technology and the market also sending out warning shots about the things that can go wrong with AI. And so non-tech people who may be in those buying positions, I mean, obviously, if we're talking cybersecurity, it's a different story. But in terms of AI in general, the market is a lot more hesitant, and tech companies are pushing it because they can. In a lot of cases, it's more of a marketing buzzword. We have a story that's sort of alluding to that. Or if it's not a marketing buzzword, it's a little bit of smoke and mirrors at this point. And so I think there's a misalignment between what you may be able to do with so-called AI and what the market is willing to accept at this point, if you're targeting somebody who is not in a tech role.
I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that many of these companies are value companies who desperately want to be growth companies. So if you think about the price to earnings ratio for a value company, it's probably going to be under 15% or under 15, sorry. And Microsoft, I think their current PE is like 34 because they are desperately trying to be a growth company again. And the only thing that justifies the stock prices for many of these companies is if they have potential to be an explosive 10x growth company. And so, you look at Meta, you look at Google, you look at Microsoft, and I would venture to guess this is what happens when your CFO and your balance sheet, you work backwards from there to what the sales goals should be to achieve that, not backwards from reality and then say, okay, here's what we've actually sold and what can we realistically expect to add on top of that. And I actually just Googled Microsoft's PE and almost fell out of my chair because there's no way that Microsoft should have a 34 PE ratio. It's ridiculous. They've been a value company. They will continue to be a value company. And so PE I'm sure most people know this, but PE is price to earnings ratio. So what's the price of your stock versus the earnings that you actually have to support that stock price? And for most value companies, established, mature companies who have been around for a long time and are growing at single digit rates, that PE should be somewhere under 20, 25 at the most. Generally, you're looking at more like mid-teens. And a lot of these companies are garnering somewhere between 30 and 80% PE, which is absolutely asinine.
Wow.
So setting up for tiers. Isn't that what IBM does at least once a generation? Is they like hook into some new thing and they try and become a growth company, like it was Watson in the late 2000s or mid 2000s to late 2000s. And then that didn't happen, apparently.
Yeah. Although speaking of them, Arvind Krishna did a podcast last week or the week before where he kind of broke down the economics of AI and why. And I was at IBM Tech Exchange. I thought that they were being very thoughtful about the actual business use cases for AI and where there would be tangible return, not just shiny objects. And
yeah, we talked about it in the last episode. I think Sean shared the tweet.
Yeah, and I think that, if you really listen to that, I'm hoping they avoid that trap this go round. I don't know. They've managed to survive every other tech implosion that's happened, so maybe they've learned some lessons.
And we might not be able to say Twitter and tweet referring to X anymore because there is a company that is petitioning the trademark and patent, U.S. Trademark and Patent Office to get access to Twitter and the term Twitter and tweet because Elon has clearly thrown it away, has no intent to use it again. So they want to start a new social network using the name Twitter and tweet, which is incredible to me because I said that was the biggest brand evaluation, like brand value toss away that I've ever seen in my life. And they're going to get it for free if they win this. And I don't, usually to keep hold of a mark like that, you have to defend it and prove that you're intending to use it. And they've clearly done the opposite. So it's going to get really confusing if there's yet another social network out there that is now called Twitter that has nothing to do with the original platform.
And if it does, it could be the most brilliant move ever because Twitter is kind of the Jello.
There's still a lot of value
of the messaging world. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I refuse to call it I don't use that platform.
So what are we going to call it now? If there's a new thing called Twitter, what are we going to call X?
X Twitter.
I don't know.
Garbage.
That's a tomorrow problem.
How did we get on this tangent?
Because somebody said tweet.
Oh, okay.
I was like, that we might not be able to say that in the near future because that might refer to an entirely new thing.
Dang. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, that's
what do you
spiraled.
on X? What do you call a post on X these days?
A post.
Zit.
It's just a post. Okay.
A high post.
All right. Moving on. I'm really interested in so several of us, I think, have done consulting. So this article saying, say goodbye to the billable hour. My reaction to it was kind of like, didn't we do that like a long time ago? Like people have been saying forever, charge for the project, not for the amount of hours it takes you to complete the project, right? Project-based pricing, not time-based pricing. What were your reactions to this?
I haven't done any hourly anything in at least 10 years. I mean, I know people who still do, not in technology though, generally. I mean, unless it's like side IT help desk stuff on the weekend kind of stuff. Again, I think, they're attributing it to AI and assuming that people are going to do things more quickly, but that's assuming that people are going to do things more quickly and then fact check it. And then that fact checking and updating and editing and fixing and what have you doesn't take the equivalent amount of time of just using your brain and doing it in the first place. But yeah, I don't know anybody in tech who really does billable by the hour. I mean,
Eamon, I think you and me have, I think, even discussed this, Eamon.
Yeah. So I have not billed. So I teach all my students not to bill by the hour, and I have not billed by the hour in many years. Actually, I learned from a mentor, Jonathan Stark, that, he talks about like,
that was the one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Ditching hourly. And he has a podcast and a book. And that's how I first learned about this. And
I learned about it from you, I think. We had a conversation on this years ago. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I have a whole module in my course about why you shouldn't bill hourly. I mean, from a customer, sometimes they don't understand why you don't bill hourly, but it's actually better for them because I'm incentivized to do my work slowly. if I bill
Yeah,
by the
same.
hour, right? But when you pay by the project, you are paying a price for an outcome. You achieve the outcome, then you get paid, or whatever it is, right? So it's very clear. And so it's up to me to, I'm incentivized to finish that outcome as fast as possible, right? And with AI, it's even better now, right? But
I was going to say with me, it's in their best interest because I am slow. I there is no fast version of it for me. I am slow. I am pedantic. So you're going to get a better quality result out of it from me. But you really don't want to know how many hours it took me to get to that outcome.
And then
Well,
there's the issue of if you anticipate something taking you, let's say 10 hours, and then it takes you 12 hours, then you have to renegotiate. You have to have those conversations. It becomes kind of ugly.
Like half the time I'm like, how am I supposed to know how long it's going to take me to do this? I've never, because I've done so many different things. Like if it's something I do repeatedly, but I've just never been in that position. Like every scenario is different, and it's just really hard to estimate the work time.
Yeah, as a former business owner, I avoided hourly rates like the plague. It was all project based, all assessment based. That was what everything.
Did you have to fight for that though?
I didn't.
Like how hard
I
did you
didn't.
have to?
I had a few very large enterprise customers that were like, "Well, we need to know how many hours this is going to be and what your rate is on that." So I was like, "Sure, I'll break it down that way," and I did that. And then they saw that it was more expensive by the hour, and they said, "Well, wait a second, this seems more expensive than the project price." I said, "Yeah, you get a discount because effectively we're bundling all the work together versus an hourly rate, which is just the number of hours times our hourly rate." And I said, "Would you prefer that we bill it that way?" And they said, "No, we'll keep it project based." But for whatever reason, they want it on the back end to be able to calculate it out that way. And that's happened a number of times over the past 8 years.
Yeah. It says that's the same like psychological approach I used when billing. I said, if you pay, if we do net zero, you pay on the day that it's delivered. Here's the cost, and then you get a discount, right? I pitched it as a discount, so I wouldn't penalize them for net 30, but they would get a discount for paying earlier.
Yeah, that's great.
And I called it a discount instead of a penalty.
We did that a few times.
And we would get stuff paid early all the time.
Yeah.
And here's another thing that just popped into my head. I just did a project for a company, and their billing system, they're a smaller company, startup, their billing system
is hourly based?
Cannot do hourly based.
Oh,
because
cannot.
I don't bill hourly, but I often do writing projects by the word because, again, I have no idea how long. I mean, it could take me 2 hours, or I could go down a complete rabbit hole. If it's a company in a technology area I'm not familiar with, I could do 10, 15, 20 hours of research before I sit down and write something. So usually I just do word-based or have for certain companies. Yeah. And they said, no, our billing system won't do it. So I don't know if that's, and it's a pretty big billing, a common one that you would know the name of. So I don't know if that's their particular plan or if, these platforms are getting rid of that and that has something to do with it as well.
Here's the thing, back to the billing thing. So not only that, but you're also paying for the experience, right? So, it's like, there's a bunch of common phrases. Like if I do it in 10 minutes, it's because I spent 10 years learning how to do it in 10 minutes. Right. Yeah. And you're not paying for the hour, you're paying for the years it took to learn to do it in an hour. So, there's a whole combination of things. And, the way to give people, fair pricing or pricing maybe they want is like, here's a whole enchilada, but if you want to pay less, then you'll get less. Right. So give people 3 choices. That's what I like to do. And
right.
Instead of like the discount, right? Because that's arbitrary. So.
Well, I've never estimated it on how many hours it's going to take me to do something. It's always based on how many hours it would take a regular person to do it. I mean, yeah. We're all the same kind of neurospicy where we're Like, and Adrian, I guess to your point, you're the neurospicy where you're more detailed, but I'm not charging someone based on how long it's going to take me to do it. I'm charging them based on probably a little bit less than it would take them to do it internally because they're not as good at things as I am. But to your point, Eamon, you're paying for the expertise. But yeah, I think the only time I do hourly is if it's on the analyst side, on the consulting, if they need me to sit in on meetings for X hours a week or something like that. And it's like, they just want somebody as a fractional something, then maybe I'll say, all right, I'll give you up to 5 or 10 hours a week at this hourly rate. But other than that,
so that kind of brings me to the AI component here, because we're talking about quality and experience, and that's something like AI doesn't have the experience, right? Like if somebody is now going to use AI to do a bunch of this, like I've been seeing stuff where I think it's pretty clear that people are posting stuff on LinkedIn that they haven't read.
Oh,
like they had AI generate it for them. And like, cause I had an experience where I shared a LinkedIn post with a friend of mine. And he was like, oh, this is really cool. I want to go talk to that person. So he hits them up in their DMs and they meet up and they have a conversation. And this person's personally complete opposite of what their LinkedIn post was saying. And we were talking about, we're like, what the hell happened here? Like, am I imagining this, or did he just take the opposite side of what he posted on LinkedIn? I'm like, I know the guy, he uses AI for a lot of stuff. There's a chance he doesn't know what was in his post.
Oh my God.
Like, he didn't read it all before copying and pasting it out there. So yeah. I wonder, with AI pulled into this, how much that's going to impact the quality of what people get. I mean, already where it's in contracts, like you're not allowed to use AI for this work. Like we're already seeing that in contract language. We're seeing it in insurance and, calling out people for it, where they even leave in the, is there anything else I can do for you? That prompt at the end of the prompt that tries to get you to keep using the tool, like they leave that in, so it's people are getting called out on their work products here.
Anytime I see the list of emoji points, I'm like,
yeah.
Well, and we're all borderline Gen X anyway. So Gen X is immune to advertising. And I think that's extending to AI. And, as long as maybe once millennials and Gen Z are more the dominant people in leadership positions, which will happen sooner than any of us want to admit. But for right now, I think most people who grew up Gen X and grew up very anti-advertising were also, as soon as I get a sniff that something's AI, be it let's be real, this was written with AI, or the 3 bullet emojis, or the at the end, it's like, so what does this mean for you? There's always like a little kitschy conclusion and next steps. And I'm like, yeah. No, thank you.
I got called out on a project that I did a little bit ago, and one of the internal reviewers, now this person wasn't in marketing, and I don't know if they had any writing or content background. And this person tried to claim that I had written the content that I was contracted to using AI because, quote, M-dashes scream AI. I'm like, have you ever taken a writing course or bought AP Style or Chicago Manual? Because I grew up with the actual book, the AP Style, and I've been using M-dash probably since before you were born. So there was my old lady get off my lawn, but I was pissed. You
threw the style guide at him.
Yeah, I was pissed. I was like, you're really saying that this looks like LLM writing because I used AP Style? You can call me old. That's fine. If, I understand styles have changed, but don't ever attribute my writing to an LLM. It made me mad.
Let's face it, enterprise data is everywhere. It's spread across apps, devices, and hybrid cloud environments, and traditional security tools are struggling to keep up. That's where Sky High Security makes a difference. Its Security Service Edge platform brings together capabilities like data security posture management, remote browser isolation, secure web gateway, and AI to unify and strengthen data protection. Designed for today's digital landscape, SkyHigh Security helps organizations discover, classify, and track sensitive data, no matter where it lives. To learn how businesses are future-proofing their data security, visit securityweekly.com/SkyHighSecurity. A password manager should be the first security purchase you make for your team. Why? Because compromised passwords are the #1 way that bad actors attack companies, and small businesses are their favorite targets. But unlike a lot of security challenges, passwords actually have a pretty simple solution. 1Password lets you manage all your business's credentials so you can feel confident that your data stays secure as your company grows. Find out more at securityweekly.com/1Password and start securing every login. Yeah, and that kind of brings us into, you shared something, Katie, this one Substack post where the AI just couldn't get its, couldn't get, it was asked to do something with actual facts and it questioned the facts, which is a new one on me. Like it's usually the opposite, right? It's hallucinating the facts. I've not seen it accuse the human of hallucinating facts before. So this is that was a first for me. But also an overconfident by design, this essay, I think it's story number 8. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Number 8, kind of adjacent to this in that like the AI is not really doing what you think it's doing behind the scenes. And this is a case where somebody's using it to process and analyze data, and it only uses part of the data, but then it lies about what it did.
Yeah. Well, it's because it's not programmed to be accurate. And the generative adversarial network, the discriminator, so, generator says, does this sound right? And the discriminator says, it sounds about 95% believable, not accurate. It says, yes, based on my training data, I'm 95% sure this sounds like lucid English that someone will believe. And I think that's
how social engineering works. 95% believable.
Yeah. And I think, I literally had to explain to somebody at this meeting last night that it's literally no different than just continuing to hit the middle button on your predictive text on your iPhone. It's just got a more robust language set to choose from and a little bit of context.
I think people forget that these LLMs or AI are just what people feed into it. And if you feed bad stuff, it's going to learn bad stuff. We're sort of programmed by media to believe that AI is magic, and it is not magic.
Yeah.
It's data.
And it is not... Definitely not a person. Like to call back to the, I can't remember how many of you were with us when we did the interview with Wendy Nather. We were talking about toxic anthropomorphism,
Yep.
Right? Because you can talk to it like a person, you start thinking about it as if it's a person, and like you should have these mental guardrails in place where you're like, okay, now I need to, quality control this.
Well, maybe our squirrel story shouldn't be a squirrel story.
It's built for efficiency. It's built to be very, very efficient. And efficient means less expensive for the LLM provider to run, which means that it drops as many tokens as it can. And I think that's the other thing. It generally keeps tokens from the beginning, tokens from what you're currently asking it, and all the stuff in the middle just gets dropped because that makes it more expensive to run that query and to detokenize what it's saying. So it's literally optimized to be cheap, which means usually less accurate.
Yeah,
but
I was going to reference the
that
Wendy
isn't
Nather
being
interview
addressed.
as well. Specifically, she said we have trained people to see computers as authoritative. So part of that is AI is authoritative.
Yeah. Well, and it does speak better than the median person. Like we have a 6th grade reading level is the midpoint in the US. So yeah, it speaks at a high school level, which makes more than 50% of the population thinks that it's smarter than they are.
For the last 50 years, computers were a calculator, and you could generally trust a calculator, right? Like that's how you check your work is you used a calculator. And now all of a sudden it's like the opposite of a calculator, right?
Yeah.
It's like we're getting all these maybes and probabilities of what we asked for and stuff like that. It's a different, mindset when using a computer. Like we none of us grew up with the Star Trek where 60% of the time Jean-Luc Picard asked for Earl Grey hot, he got bubble tea, right? Like that didn't happen on Star Trek, right? But that's what we're dealing with now.
But it was gray bubble tea, so it kind of looked.
Earl Grey bubble tea could be tasty. I don't know.
I guess it was temperature controlled. He didn't need to switch between the cold and the hot.
When the computer had a virus, that's when it came out kind of funky or kind of melted.
Or when Q was messing with stuff.
Yeah.
You get cotton candy instead of his tea.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is Craig Balding, the Threat Prompt newsletter. This is where the Overconfident by Design one comes from. Story number 8. We just graze the surface of it. He does a really good job of kind of breaking down the risks in using an LLM for this kind of work and what you need to understand about what's happening behind the scenes to handle those risks. So really good read, really recommend, especially if you're using it for any kind of data science type work, statistical work, any kind of calculator work where it's very much not a calculator. That's worth a read. How many of you got a chance to watch the video, the AI Eats the World video?
We're about to be the best example of this that could possibly exist because we all read the same Gemini summary of this. So we're all going to have the same opinion of this video, which is what Gemini's opinion is, which is probably not even close to accurate.
That's not true. I did actually watch it, and it's pretty. I watched the whole thing this morning, and it's pretty good. It's pretty close because it was fed. It was fed not only the slides and the transcription. So.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective, and that's the reason I shared it is his perspective. And he doesn't force his opinion down your throat. He kind of stages as is generative AI just another step in software? Because it seems like every time we have a big leap in technology, it's groundbreaking. Like we use all these terms, it's game changing and all that. And then when the dust settles, it's, maybe a 10% bump in productivity, 20% bump or something like that, or only worked for certain niche use cases. And, in other use cases, people just went back to the way that they did it before. And, the dust hasn't settled yet, but I like how he kind of poses these questions and uses history as the foil for coming up with those questions.
Yeah, I thought it was very well done, very practical, and sort of the opposite of how AI is being marketed. It was very, let's look at history. This is certainly not the first time there's been something disruptive. And right now, everything is, I remember going back to mobile, how it was the same thing, and people were like flipping out, right?
Yeah.
Eventually, this all settles down. It's a little harder to see it right now, and I don't want to give away there was no real conclusion here. It was just a really nice, very practical, very linear approach to looking at something that's getting a lot of hype at the moment and saying, all right, let's see what will happen. Now, he does have a definitive opinion on where he thinks this is going, based on some other similar type of developments in history, but it's just it's simply laid out. It's 18 minutes, so it did take a while to get there, but it was interesting. It kept my attention.
It is about 40 minutes of content, but it does take 18 minutes. He goes quick.
Yeah, there's a lot of good information in this.
For me, that would have been 40 minutes of content if I were saying it.
Sean?
Oh, I was just saying it was a really good take on things, and there was slides and numbers behind what he was saying as well that was showed throughout. So I thought that was really good. And the interesting perspective of, we went through mainframes, we went through PCs, we went through web, we went through mobile, as Katie mentioned. And this is just another one of those things that we'll have to get on board with, because it's going to be around. It's going to change. He said that the players that were early on sort of pioneers in these other areas weren't around anymore, or were around in different ways later on. So it's probably going to be the same thing as well as we look forward into the future. It might not be OpenAI that is one of the trendsetters in this area as we look 10 years in the future.
Well, that's what Michael Burry said. Michael Burry said OpenAI is going to be the Netscape.
The Netscape. I love that take.
Yeah.
That was a brilliant take.
One of the things that just occurred to me as we were talking about this is that I think AI is going to be like hand washing and personal protective equipment. We have still not cured the vast majority of diseases that kill humans. Old ass ones. We still have bubonic plague. We still have hepatitis. What we have done, though, is done a really good job at preventing them, containing the spread of them, and even vaccines don't stop them, right? And so I think what AI will enable is, one of the things I always bitch about is we've done a terrible job at controlling data creation, and that our ability to create data has completely outpaced our ability to categorize it and classify it. And so I think one of the things AI is going to do is, it's not going to be the be all end all of, general intelligence. I think it's just going to be able to help us keep up with, as we're creating data, categorizing and classifying it so that we can automate it. And automating doesn't necessarily mean AI. It means basic automation and machine learning. And the thing that's prevented the enterprise from automating thus far has been the quality of the data we're sitting on. So I think in the end, I think at the end of the day, he compares it to a washing machine. Same thing. Like, I think what it's going to turn into is the way we wash our data. And if that alone is one of the outcomes of AI, it will greatly benefit the enterprise. It will greatly benefit our lives, because we'll actually be able to understand the kind of data that we're holding on to.
And this is exactly why I titled my talk, Greatest Janitor or Worst Superhero. That talk I was giving last year is like don't underscore the value of some, cleanup organization, like all these little things are stuff that we hate to do, and it's a huge convenience. It's a huge benefit for us to be able to do it. It's just not sexy. You shouldn't have to promise to save the world to be able to sell it. Right.
Yeah.
But it's
preventing
only
disease
good
is not as
and
sexy as curing it.
And efficient and effective and makes a difference if we can ensure that A, we're taking the right steps, doing all the cleanup, and B, ensuring that the outcomes are accurate. Because right now, just like that article that you referenced that I shared the other day, when AI, in quotes, can't know if something is factual or not, and calling things that are lies real and calling real things lies, that's not helping.
All right.
That's okay.
Got a little bit of time left. I loved your story, Jackie, on is your Android TV streaming box part of a botnet? And what's your first clue here? What's your first clue that this might be too good to be true? Unlimited access to more than 2,200 pay-per-view and streaming services, all for a one-time fee of about $400.
Yeah. So this is actually research that was done by one of my best friends in the whole world, Ashley, and she is brilliant. And so essentially what this is these are these streaming boxes that you can buy at Walmart, Best Buy, Amazon, all these different places, called super boxes. And what it does is, as soon as you spin it up, it uninstalls Android. It installs its own operating system. It starts reaching out to all these crazy servers, be they in Russia, China, what have you. And then I've also heard anecdotes from other people that when they have engineers who have one of these in their house, it actually starts trying to hack other endpoints on an enterprise network from this streaming box. This is just this is like next level. And it's one of those things where it's targeting the people who are the least capable of defending themselves against it, you know, because your grandma might think that it's a good idea to make a one-time $400 or $500 investment in one of these boxes and not have to pay the $50-$60 a month that all the different streaming services add up to. But the way it's accomplishing this is violating all kinds of different laws. Yeah, and then the other piece that was interesting is it also signs you up for a service, and the service claims they didn't know, what's it called, green space, that essentially sells your extra broadband, your extra bandwidth, to this company who then uses it for all these different things. The reference I made to IPs earlier is it's also now using these endpoints to host malicious ad networks. So you may very well get your IP blocked by ISPs because crazy stuff's happening on this little streaming device on your network without you knowing it.
Yeah, the article is a great
congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a wild read. There are layers to it, but I think my summary in the comments was, Merry Christmas, Mom, you're part of a botnet now.
Yeah, I definitely did not expect that ending. It was fascinating, the journey and the research. Props to Ashley, because it was a tremendous amount of research on this.
Yeah. She's one of the smartest people I know.
All right, and we've got 2 squirrel stories here. The first is My Buddy, I think, is how how the AI voice was pronouncing it on their advertisements, because it's all AI voices. The world's first AI-powered dog translation collar. So like Doug from Up, that's what they're pitching on this Kickstarter. It has 38 days to go. They're pitching a dog collar that translates what your dog is saying via a phone app. It also counts your dog's steps and stuff like that. So it's also an activity tracker, but like everything is AI here. Like there is some real video of people here, but there's a lot of AI too. So hard to tell. This is their first project. This creator has no background here. So if you get in on this, I would be very careful.
I was disappointed that the collar itself doesn't do the talking, that you have to look at your phone to see what it was. I was hoping for Doug from Up, that the dog would be like, I like you, or you're great.
There's no reason it couldn't either.
Right.
Like technically that wouldn't use that much more battery. Like even like the Apple AirTags and the Tiles have a little speaker that can make sound from them. Like maybe you get like 8 days instead of 9 days of battery life on it before you have to recharge it. But and Sean, I think that's because it probably doesn't work at all.
It was fine-tuned by professional dog trainers.
I have a lot of people.
So professional.
Sorry.
So not scientists, professional dog trainers are the ones defining like the language of dogs here.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I have a handful of friends who use the mats that you pre-program the words into, and then either your dog or I have a bunch of friends who use them for cats can come over and just step on a button and basically say food
feed me,
or bathroom or
angry, feed me. If you've ever seen some of those videos, it's hilarious.
Yeah. On the one hand,
you do not need one of those. I can tell you just from your camera when Gus wants to eat. I can tell you exactly.
No, I meant for me.
Oh, okay.
Oh. angry.
Use your words, Katie.
Your next stand-up meeting.
Right.
The one thing about the My Buddy that I wasn't certain about is it says it has a subscription, or there's a subscription part of it, and what is actually paywalled behind the subscription? Is it the continued updates? Is it the AI itself?
It's the LLM.
Okay.
You only get, so without the subscription, I think you get 10 translations a day or something like that. So because they're basically, it's using Whisper and OpenAI, sending your dog's thoughts
to the cloud.
However that works. They are using a third-party LLM, and they have to pay for it. So that's what the subscription's for.
There's no dog LLM.
That's definitely a specialized LLM that I've not seen yet. Like, what would the training data be?
Right.
Just videos of dogs barking?
Right.
Like, how would you train
Well,
it?
and to
then
that,
all the
they're all
different dogs,
different.
and then
and to that
yeah.
point, how did they do all this training and figure out with the dog trainers what the dog is saying if it's using an over the shelf or off the shelf LLM?
Well, they just took what the either dog trainers or dog therapists or whatever have observed. Like, if you have a pet, you can observe these very same things. I'm not sure how much more qualified somebody is because they have a degree than if you live with a pet for your entire life. You know when they have to go out. Adrian, he's a qualified cat therapist. He knows when Gus wants to eat. Like, you can tell when they're mad at you. You can tell when they're happy. When they come up and the dog wags its tail when you come home. It's like, woohoo, you're home, feed me.
Maybe they
That's
use, like,
what they're
heart rate.
feeding in.
Maybe
No
they use
pun
heart
intended.
rate or something to like help determine, some other. That'd be interesting.
Well, yeah, but the
I-
data that's used to train it is input by humans. It's not input by dogs. So there's one problem I see.
This just makes me think of pets.com when I see this. So
I think you've already put more thought into it than they have. And
maybe.
and do Shih Tzus and Malamutes speak the same language? Like, is that like how many different breeds?
No, because I was
this
just going to say that. So I have 3 dogs. One of them's a Chihuahua Bulldog. He doesn't bark at all unless there's somebody at
That's
the door.
an interesting combo.
I have a Chihuahua Bulldog. He looks like a chug. I have a Pit Bull Husky, and he barks a little bit. But then I have a Pit Bull or a Husky Cattle Dog, and he is the smartest dog I've ever had. He is the most vocal dog I've ever had. He has like 50 different barks. They all mean something different. We
That
already
sounds like
taught
a
him
pain
to
in
say
the
"I
ass."
love you." Like he literally goes "Roo, roo, roo." Like so. No, some dogs are much more verbose than other dogs for sure.
But this isn't just based off the bark. This is based off their observed behavior. And obviously, the observed behavior is anthropomorphized anyway, right? Like, we are, as humans, interpreting what the dog is thinking, right? And putting it into human terms. So there's one issue there. But what's wrong with us as humans that we want to take out even that level of small thinking from our own lives and let some app be like, your dog is happy to see you. You want to look at your phone and be like, your dog is happy to see you. Your dog is pissed off you didn't give it a piece of your steak. Like, really? Come on, people.
Well, I did learn from my dog trainer that higher pitched barking means come closer and is positive, and lower pitched barking is like a warning sign. So it was actually something I didn't know. So if anybody else didn't know that, that's a good anecdote for training your dogs.
Maybe we should feed that into the My Buddy LLM.
I know.
There you go.
I really want to see how hallucination manifests in this product.
Your dog is tripping.
Your dog had
want 5
alcohol.
shares of Apple stock.
Well, it's kind of like a fortune teller in a way. Like, they might say something and then you'll just believe it because who are you to say that it's not true? And so it's in a way, it's kind of like taking that magic 8-ball fortune teller approach.
Great point, Eamon.
Yeah, maybe it's has entertainment value at least for the people that own it. And our last squirrel story is a different kind of dog. It's a bear.
It's a bear dog.
Yeah. So I found this on Substack and liked it, and then Katie sent it. So we're sharing the second one, and it is just a bear enjoying a swing set. And I think that's a great place to leave the podcast today, because it's just it's lovely.
Yeah, that is great.
And to be clear, we don't know what the bear is thinking, and that's okay.
Well, let's
I'll
get
tell
him
you
on
what
My
The bear
Buddies.
Bear looks like he's having a good time. Bear looks content.
He's thinking
I'm going to go out on a limb and say this bear is living the life.
Absolutely.
I
Just
think
needs
so
a
too.
beer.
And none of us needed an app for that.
Exactly. All right. With that, Sean, Katie, Jackie, Eamon, thank you so much for joining me today. Lovely doing this with you guys through the holidays. I think we're going to do a special recording of a few Hopefully, most of you can make that whenever we manage to schedule those. And those are going to be the ones that come out during the holidays when we are not going to be in front of our cameras or microphones. So, yeah,
Wear my
big thanks to everyone.
jammies.
Yeah, exactly. Big thanks to everybody watching or listening to this week's episode of Enterprise Security Weekly. I think we do have a regularly scheduled show next week. We'll be talking to Frank Vukovitz from Delinea about insider threats, and we will see you then.